The doctor looked her in the eyes and said 4 words she would never forget. "You will never walk." She was 24 years old, lying in a hospital bed, both legs paralyzed, career destroyed, future gone. Most people would have accepted those 4 words as their sentence. Sarah did not. 8 years later, she crossed the finish line of a full marathon on her own 2 feet. This is her story, and it will change how you think about what is possible. Forever. Before that hospital room, Sarah had the life most people dream about. She was a professional dancer, had been since she was 4 years old. 20 years of training, 20 years of sacrifice. Early mornings, late nights, bleeding feet and aching muscles, all building toward one thing, her dream of performing on the world's biggest stages. She had just landed her first major role with a national dance company. The rehearsals had started. The costumes had been fitted. She was 3 weeks away from the opening night of her life. And then, on a Tuesday morning in November, a car ran a red light. Sarah remembers nothing of the collision itself. She remembers waking up. The white ceiling, the smell of antiseptic, the strange heaviness of her body. And she remembers trying to move her legs. Nothing. She tried again. Nothing. She looked at her mother sitting beside the bed. And she saw it in her mother's eyes before any doctor said a single word. Something had been taken from her. Something she had spent her entire life building. Gone. In a moment, through no fault of her own. The spinal cord injury was severe. The doctors were not cruel. They were simply honest. The damage meant Sarah would likely never regain full use of her legs. Walking was considered extremely unlikely. Running, medically impossible. Sarah was 24 years old, and her world had just ended. The months that followed were the darkest of her life. She moved back into her childhood bedroom. The dance posters on the wall felt like a cruelty she couldn't bring herself to remove. Friends visited at first, then less often, then rarely. People didn't know what to say to a girl whose entire identity had been taken from her. Sarah didn't know either. She stopped eating properly. She stopped sleeping well. There were days she didn't open the curtains, weeks that blurred into each other. Depression settled in like a fog that had no edges, and in the quiet of those long nights, a thought would come to her, the same thought, over and over. If I cannot dance, who am I? Have you ever lost something so central to who you are that you didn't know how to exist without it? Sarah lived inside that question for over a year. 14 months after the accident, Sarah's physiotherapist said something that changed everything. She didn't give a motivational speech. She didn't talk about mindset or potential. She simply said, "Can you try to stand today? Just for 1 second, just to see. Not walk, not run, not dance, just stand." Sarah stood for 3 seconds, then collapsed back into the chair. But something had shifted. She had stood. 3 seconds, that was enough. She came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. 3 seconds became 10. 10 became 30. 30 became a minute. 6 months of daily physiotherapy. 6 months of falls, tears, frustration, and stubborn refusal to quit. And one morning, without warning, without fanfare, Sarah took a step. One shaking, uncertain, deeply imperfect step. She grabbed the parallel bar. She stood there. She breathed. And then she decided something that even her doctors thought was impossible. She was going to run a marathon. Not someday, not maybe. A specific marathon, a specific date, a specific finish line. She wrote it on a piece of paper and stuck it on the wall above her bed. directly over the space where the doctor's words still echoed in her head. "You will never walk." She wrote above it, "Watch me." What followed was 2 years of the most brutal, beautiful, heartbreaking training imaginable. There were days she could not get out of bed from the pain. Days her legs gave out on a quiet street, and she sat on the pavement crying, alone, wondering if she had been fooling herself all along. Her doctors remained cautious. Some remained doubtful. A well-meaning friend told her she was setting herself up for more heartbreak. Sarah smiled, nodded, and kept going. She could not run the way she used to. Her gait was different now. Slower, more deliberate, more effortful than any runner on the road around her. But she was on the road. She ran her first kilometre without stopping on a grey October morning. 3 years after the accident, she sat down on the curb when she finished it and sobbed. Not from pain, from joy so overwhelming she didn't know what else to do with it. 1 kilometre, the first kilometre of 42. Race day. 8 years after a car ran a red light and stole the life she had planned. 4 years after a doctor told her she would never walk again. Sarah stood at the start line of a full 42-kilometre marathon. Around her, thousands of runners. Trained athletes, weekend warriors, people who had been running their whole lives. Sarah had been walking for 4 years. She finished the race in 6 hours and 41 minutes, dead last. And when she crossed that finish line, when her feet touched the mat and the timer stopped, the crowd that had been waiting for the final finisher erupted. Strangers who had never met her were crying. Her physiotherapist, who had been there from the very first 3 seconds, I was standing at the finish line with tears streaming down her face. Sarah crossed the line, looked up at the sky, and said simply, "I told you so." She was not talking to anyone there. She was talking to the doctor who had said those 4 words. She was talking to every person who had doubted her. She was talking to the version of herself that almost gave up in that dark bedroom. Dead last in a marathon is still a marathon, and finishing what the world said you couldn't start. That is not defeat. That is the most complete definition of victory I have ever heard. I want to leave you with one thought today. The doctors were not wrong about the science. The damage was real. The odds were real. The difficulty was real. What the doctors could not measure, what no scan or test or medical chart can ever show, is what a human being is capable of when they simply refuse to accept the story they've been handed. Sarah did not beat the odds because she was special. She beat the odds because she decided, in that small dark bedroom on the worst days of her life, that the story was not finished yet. You are the author of your story, not the accident, not the diagnosis, not the person who told you that you couldn't. You. Whatever chapter you are in right now, however dark, however painful, however stuck you feel, the story is not finished. Keep writing it. If Sarah's story gave you even one moment of strength today, share it with someone who needs it. Because somewhere right now, someone is sitting in their own dark bedroom, wondering if their story is over. Send them this video. It might change everything. Every single day on NeverQuitTV, we bring you a new true story of someone who refused to quit. Subscribe, follow, and come back tomorrow. And tell me in the comments, what have you been told you could never do that you are still fighting for? I read every single one. This is NeverQuitTV, and we will see you tomorrow.